ensuring that they use the service and the different features is a key. So we're working constantly on multiple factors, and it's not really a silver bullet of how to, to make them use the service more, but it's multiple steps and multiple actions.
And making sure, I guess, that those long-established customers become aware. Also, I realise that you're not in the same market as Jean David. However, if Jean David is introducing Restart, for example, you have to make sure that not only do you have a Restart, but your customers know about it, because the people might look to Molotov and think, oh, it's this nice new shiny service, it's brand new, it's got all those new things, and overlook the fact that you're trying to do those things too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, again, it's all coming back to understanding what the customer wants. And then, if we take Jean David as an example, and those specific features, there's a lot of services out there, right? And at the end of the day, I think, there are forerunners, and especially the big Americans, when it comes to sort of user and product experience. And it's all about sort of, keeping up the pace there and close dialogue. Again, I think, just coming back to one of my key points, and also what Katarina was mentioning before, that Warner Bros. Discovery in the most recent Max launch, we've been super involved, working super close with your team, obviously integrating the entire experience. So again, from my perspective, I would like to sort of kill the perspective that it is a fight between the old traditional TV distributors and the SVODs. I see it as commercial and technical partnerships, and there's joint benefits and upsides to both worlds.
And just to continue the theme, Jean David, on the additional services, it is things like replay, things like fast, that again are providing an added dimension over and above the streaming services, which we're also talking about here.
Yes, what do you mean by that?
Well, I guess the importance to viewers, whereas if replay as an example, before you just sit down, if you miss the first 10 minutes of the show, that was it. Now you press the button and it's you're back again right at the start of the show.
Yeah, that's the standard, of course. And we're beyond that.
You genuinely see that as the standard now, so that's like every day, like the on and off button.
Yeah, of course. Everybody use that. Now you cannot the show and it's not mastering your time. If you're late, you can see it whenever you want. What we're working on is now using AI to for example, to understand what's going on, for example, on a channel, on a show, to alert people that something that might interest them is going on, because we analyze what's going on, or to recap what happened, for example, a political show or a talk show. Who was the guest? What did they say? What was the tendency that might interest you? You can watch it in catch up or replay. Another thing we're working on is these recommendation engines that when you log in the service and it recommends the content for you as a user, but sometimes in front of the TV you're not just one person, you're 2, 3, or 4 persons. So what's interesting that we're working on is that we mixed the recommendation of multiple persons, depending on who's in front of the TV, so that the service recommends a content that can fit to all 3 of us, 2 of us. And it also has an impact on advertising, because we know who's watching, so that there is the ad tech team to know who's in front of the TV.
And how does it do that? Does it do that on the time of day? Is it based on a login?
It's for now working on use. We try every use cases, but the use cases we're working on is just asking the question, who's in front? And then you click X, Y, Z. So rather than just going to X, you can say X and Y. And then the service starts and recommends content, show you advertising that fits both persons, and it has a lot of impact on the service. That's the kind of thing we're working on.
And Katarina, we're getting lots of different types of business model emerging, I think. The way that we were talking the panel this morning about the basic ad style tier being bundled together, but we're seeing other things. I'm wondering, are there, it may be too early for you to try new things, because you've only just launching Max here, but what sort of ways are people able to subscribe to Max?
Yeah, so our intention is to launch with all the 3 tiers that are also available in the US. So we will have the ad-light tier in many of our markets, although not from launch in every market. We obviously have the standard tier, and then we have the ultimate tier. And we do have a sports add-on that you could subscribe to in addition to any of these tiers. With the ad-light, I think the intention is to explore it more and more as we expand Max and we learn more about our audiences in Europe in general. I think what's also interesting in terms of the new things that we're trying, other than the tiering, which I think is something that we see more and more of, right? Like there will be more and more models and more different price entry points. So
I worry it's going to get very complicated very quickly with different sort of permutations of, combinations of services and then combinations of tiers after that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But also, as part of that process, it might hopefully become a little bit simpler. Like, for example, in the US, we're trying something completely different, where we are actually partnering with another streaming service. We are going to be offering Max together with Disney Plus and Hulu. So basically, we are creating the ultimate entertainment bundle. And you could have that bundle either as an ad-light, so you get all of these services with an ad-light subscription, or as a standard. And this is the first time we're trying something like this, but we are extremely optimistic. First of all, we think that it is going to really help us grow subscriber retention in a very mature market such as the US. And at the same time, we think that thanks to this bundle, we will also be able to reach a lot of new subscribers who otherwise might have been not necessarily opting for multiple streaming services because of price sensitivity.
I think this sort of bundling is, one sort of area where it's both a good thing and at the same time it could become complicated as well. And I guess in so many different places there is fragmentation, which the role of the pay TV operator is almost to put it back together again.
And I think you really you're pointing at one of the largest challenges from a consumer behavior, which is the complexity, right? Because I think I've spent 10 years in this industry and I still think it's very, very complex to just explain what my competitors are doing and how they are packaging. So it is tricky. But I think it's coming back to the core and really what aggregation and super-aggregation is. It is to simplify the user experience for the end consumers. Because the content landscape, the value chain, and the entire ecosystem, it is quite complex with multiple different stakeholders. You have former content or broadcasters going direct to consumers, skipping the middle layer. You have new entrants. It is complex, and as a distributor and as an aggregator, one of the key things that you can bring to the customer is to simplify and have them have a seamless TV experience. So I think it's really coming back to the role of an aggregator and a distributor.
And are the bundles which are being introduced, as hardly a week goes by without another couple of announcements from major operators that, Katarina mentioned a moment or two ago, the Disney Hulu Max one in the States is one example. There's obviously others around Europe as well. Is that for the better for the consumer, or is it just like something else to look down the list of options when they're subscribing to your services?
It's twofold. I mean, if you take the content provider's perspective, they're making significant investments into content, right? And in order to get the return on investments, they need scale. And in order to scale, if you can't go direct to consumers, you need partnerships. So it's a quite natural aspect from a financial perspective. From a partner side, from a distributor, from an aggregator perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense because they're bringing high quality content to the market. That's something that the consumer wants. So again, it's coming back to that role of simplifying, because it's going to be too complex. If you're an end consumer and you would have to go to 8 or 9 or 10 different SVOD providers just to get the packages that you want, first of all, it would be bloody expensive at the end of the day. And secondly, you would have to switch between different apps. And that's not a good experience. So there's definitely simplification that could add value to the customer.
Simplification also then within the technical setup. One of I find the most feels irritating, get any kind, all your content in one place in 27 easy button presses.
Yeah,
this constant going in and out of things, whereas before it was just, 502, 789, and then you reached the channel you wanted.
Yeah, and I think that is a challenge. I think one of the sort of, just bringing in an analogy here, there's a Swedish company well known called Spotify, which obviously sort of aggregates all the music in the world. The music industry is different from the TV and the entertainment industry because you have content rights that are vastly different. And I think that's a simple experience, right? You can get more or less all the music that you want in one package. That is different.
You don't end up with a universal package and a Motown package.
No, you
You're
don't.
getting
You don't.
straight from
You don't,
Spotify.
right? So I think, I don't think, as far as I live, and I'm still quite young, at least if I consider myself, as far as I live, I don't see how the TV industry would evolve into a sort of complete Spotify model. I think first of all, there's so much value in the TV industry, and there will be different players who want to be a part of that cake. But there is something of at least simplifying the entire technical experience.
Yeah, what's your role in simplifying things in at Telecom Austria? Do you feel you've been able to do what you want to do in terms of offering the packages to the consumers?
Yes,
Or
absolutely.
having the ability to give it to you by the streaming services in the first place, of course?
Exactly. So simplifying in several aspects actually we are trying to do. So simplifying in terms of technical platform, right? So and one billing platform. So once we introduce a new streaming platform, we integrate it with.
Ever hoped for, really?
It depends. So one thing which is interesting, sorry, I'm going to get to operators again, but if you think about the television sets, before when you were buying a TV, you were buying just the device. Now you get, for example, Samsung TV Plus. But the funny thing is that you get hundreds of channels into the Samsung TV Plus, but not the regular channels that you used to have with the antenna. You have to go to a third party. The reason is because they don't make the deals with the traditional channels. It's an aggregator business to do that. So it's very confusing for the user.
Yeah, you can find Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares wherever you look, but if you want TF1 or the BBC, you're in trouble. Elena, you wanted to come
I
in.
just wanted to mention that we also discovered the trends from the subscribers to switch between the different streaming platforms, and we decided to address it in a way with the swappable concept in some markets.
Swappable concept, so you have to elaborate on that for me.
Let me explain to you. So this means that we provide different bundles to the subscribers with our core services, and with different bundles they receive the opportunity to get 2 or 4, for example, streaming platforms for a certain period of time. And they can start watching their favorite show on Max, for example, for 1 month until they decide to switch to Netflix, for example, and watch a series there. Then they switch. So we tried to target these customers, the switchers, as we call them, who are anyway switching from one platform to another, and actually to attract them, to give them the possibility and the freedom to use our services and attract them and meet their requirements.
I think that's a good example, just one point, because I think we see the same, because SVOD is a churn and return behavior, right? You tend to swap between different services. So very similarly, we have a flexibility package. So meaning that, you know, you offer the customers like an a la carte menu of 10 different SVOD services, and then you can buy 2 or 4, and you can switch in between. So I think it's catered for the consumer behavior, which is really swapping or churning and returning, which is different compared to the traditional TV customers.
I guess it's kind of like a comfort blanket for the customers, isn't it? To make sure that, arguably on both sides, to retain the customers and to give the customer that sort of reassurance that they can go back when that new series of The Crown or whatever appears.
And actually this is keeping us loyal to us, right? Because once they feel the freedom that they can do whatever they want actually, they can subscribe easily, they can actually log with one single sign-on to all the different platforms. They can decide to cancel or actually to switch from one platform to another. This is keeping them loyal to us.
You mentioned a single sign-on there. Do you think that's also, and if I'm understanding it correctly, you don't have to faff around with a different login through each service? It's all in one go.
That's very important. I believe that it's very crucial actually for us.
Yeah. The user experience is very important.
Do you think the user experience is becoming, more important now that you have the smart TVs and smart sticks and all the rest of it to compete with, as well as, you know, the old-fashioned rivals that you've had from, say, the cable companies and others?
Definitely. I think, again, I think everyone in the panel has sort of mentioned that it is a complex ecosystem, right? And, you know, the example that you brought up, Jean-David, with also the hardware manufacturers and the TV producers taking on the role. So the user experience is extremely important, and I think one thing that has been discussed and debated a lot, but it's still not really there, I think it's the entire sort of content discovery, right? Because you have so much content that is offered across different platforms and different services. How do you ensure that you don't have to spend 25 minutes on Friday night trying to figure out what you're going to watch? How do you find a personalized recommendation engine that is actually sort of, you know, improving your user experience? That is key.
Very challenging. I was wondering, how do you, the two of you here, maybe Katerina as well, operating across different markets, are there variations in consumer behaviour? Say, I don't know, in your case, maybe between Finland and Denmark, say, I don't know, maybe other better examples.
I think if I start and take the Finland versus Denmark example, it is different. First of all, I think the sort of the infrastructure is different, where you have, you know, super high broadband penetration in Denmark, whereas Finland tends to be more 5G. So the infrastructure is different from that perspective. And then if you look at the traditional pay TV markets, they've been different. Finland has had a very small pay TV market if you compare it to the rest of the Nordics, much more free to air. Denmark is a mini pay structure compared to Norway and Sweden. So even though, you know, the Nordics is at the end of the day quite a small pond, but there are large variations between the different countries, definitely. So that's something that you need to cater for as well, of course.
We're finding, the rest of us are finding the same. I don't think Austria is like Germany in terms of Germans never seem to want to pay for anything. I'm sorry, apologies to any Germans in the audience here. But that's the general perception of pay TV in that market. Do you find a willingness in some to subscribe to every pay TV platform, then in another country they're not interested?
Well, I would not say that people in Austria do not pay for TV, because actually it's quite expensive. Free TV is actually quite expensive, so we all need to pay quite a lot, and then on top of that...
But when you say free TV quite expensive, you mean the license fee, or...?
Yes, it's a government fee which everyone needs to pay.
Yeah.
Which in the other markets, Balkan markets, we don't have it, for example, at all. So, and then you have pay TV on top of that, and the same, similar to what you said, actually, it's a really big deviation, actually, although it's someone would summarize our markets, it's local markets, but they're so different. In all these countries, the subscribers are driven by different needs. So they're quite different, and especially Austria and this part of the world.
We look ahead maybe a little bit to the future to end with. What are both the innovations in terms of, I don't know, something that you might do with the look and feel of the TV guide, but also maybe some serious infrastructure that needs to go in, which may be out of our control as to what we might want to bring in. And as you mentioned a moment or two ago, Finland being okay with 5G, but other markets not so much so. Is it, in your case, for example, is it a wait and see for the other territories to bring in 5G or some other technology?
I think 5G could be a game changer. I think from our perspective, it is to ensure that you have a product or a proposition that would work sort of regardless of distribution, whether it's traditional broadband or whether it is 5G, which I think we have with our sort of Alenta Stream product, which is an OTT-based platform. So I think we can cater for that. Then, if there's anything where I think the key in order to win the market is all about sort of the content discovery, ensuring that you can find a way to allow your customer to discover the breadth of your portfolio, but still be very sort of spot on and targeted in terms of the recommendation.
Jean-David.
Yes, as I said, we are as an aggregator or super-aggregator, what we are aiming at is, again, content discovery and the user experience on all the devices. We're working, for example, on a new app on the Apple Vision to see what we can do and add on the experience. They can add something new that you cannot have with a TV, for example, which could be interaction between people during watching the same show. As I mentioned earlier, is content discovery with multiple people in front of the TV, which is interesting. We're working on. It's also understanding more what's going on the TV, on the channels, whether it's live or non-live. It's all these things that we're working on to enhance the end user experience and the branding of the service. We are a very strong believer that branding a service which is an aggregator so that people can relate to, find on different devices, whether they use Samsung, LG, Apple, whatever, is very important.
Katharina, I guess all the hard work, well, not all the hard work, but your tech team must have been so busy amalgamating the services into what's launched as Max over the past few days.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's we've really taken our time to develop Max. We took a lot of time, but that is only because we really wanted to make sure that we take the best of these.
I'd say literally, I've heard some detail about it, of literally sort of taking bits from Discovery Plus, which work, and bits from the old HBO Max, which work.
And bits from HBO Max. But we also added a lot of new functionalities, and we enhanced a lot of new features. So we really think that we have created the state-of-the-art new platform. It is much smarter than before, and it can really help us test, automate, and make changes very quickly to the content, which for us is critical as we are scaling globally at the moment, that platform. What we've also made sure is that the platform is capable of sustaining a lot of concurrent volume of streams. That is very important for us, particularly in Europe, because we have thousands and thousands of hours of live sports. And because we are preparing to host the biggest sporting event on the planet, like the Olympics in summer. So we're very happy with how the platform is turning up. But of course, it's a constant journey. And we need to take time to recognize that we are, at the moment, in a complete disruption when it comes to the media industry. And we just feel lucky that we're heading that disruption, we are getting along with the change, and we are learning as we go in many of these circumstances.
And then it must be sort of tricky sometimes with different territories at different, similar really to what Jonas was telling us about, different different territories at different speeds in all senses when you're launching a new product? You sometimes have to hold something back, or if the infrastructure in a particular territory is not up to the job.
So from our side, of course, the technical platform needs to be very reliable, and that's quite important also to be supported well. That's why we are doing it in a centralized way. So we have a support organization which is doing committees, and this is actually helping us to develop according to the needs and the scale which we achieve.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for